Majesty, Your Royal Highness, dear Baden-Powell Fellows, Scouts and distinguished guests. Welcome to the 74th World Baden-Powell Fellowship event and our Impact of Scouting seminar.
We're absolutely delighted. We're absolutely delighted to be in Dublin. It really couldn't have come soon enough, and we have waited a long time to be here. But Scouts are tenacious, and we were not going to pass up the opportunity to show you the impact of Scouting.
It's a pleasure to have you all here, and I know from many discussions already over the past days, you all have been looking forward to this moment that has been postponed and postponed and postponed, but we are here. Thank you, Scouting Ireland, for having us. Thank you, Baden-Powell Fellows, for traveling all over the world, and have a fantastic afternoon.
So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our MC for the event this afternoon. She is an Irish Rover Scout and a Dubliner, Nora Smith.
Céad míle fáilte romh go léir. This translates to 100,000 welcomes. It is an honour to welcome you all to the Mansion House today. My name is Nora, and I've been a scout with the 35th Lenore Avenue Scout Group in Dublin since I was 6. Today, we are going to discover and be reminded of how Scouting is creating a lasting global impact in communities around the world. It is an honour to share with you a message from the President of Ireland and patron of Scouting Ireland, Michael D. Higgins. May I send my best wishes to all of those taking part in the World Scout Foundation Impact Seminar. The Scouting movement has a long and illustrious history, both here in Ireland and across the world. Across the generations, the movement has helped to produce many of the decision makers and creative thinkers of the future, who would leave their own unique footprint on society as they worked to create a better and more inclusive world. Many more young people discovered through their involvement with the Scouts the importance of being proactive and productive members of a team, recognising and contributing their own talents and skills for the greater good. Today, the Scouting movement continues to enable young people to become passionate and proactive citizens, generously committed to effecting positive change in their communities and their societies. This is a greatly valuable mission, and I thank you for nurturing our younger generation and opening them up to a world rich with challenges and possibilities. I wish you a most successful seminar and every success as you continue your important work. We are now going to share some incredible Scout stories and projects that are changing lives for the better. Then we will hear more about growth and momentum in Scouting from our leadership. And finally, we have planned a questions and answer session for you to ask some questions. As you listen to our speakers, please remember that this is all possible thanks to the dedication of our young people and with your continuous support. Every single gift from every Baden-Powell Fellow makes an impact. You are helping young people to develop their leadership skills, empowering them to drive positive change, and the results are stunning. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Kürbis from the BDP German Scout Association. Let's find out more about Wachsen in Sachsen, meaning Let's Grow in Saxony, a project which gives young people the opportunity to experience Scouting and develop their potential as agents of change. In an area of Germany where extremism is on the rise, in a multicultural society with a great number of refugees, opportunities for young people are limited and Scouting is needed there more than ever.
Saxony needed more Scouting, first of all, because to exist in the future. So that means that we had Scouting structures and we had some Scout groups, but it was very little in our region. Scouting is possible in the Eastern Germany parts since 1990, and before of it, it was just forbidden. New states account less than 2% of members of total membership of the whole national association. So the scouting structures here are very less, and we have really less memberships. So when we start our project, we had 3 established groups in Saxony, with about 120 people in membership. The big goal of our project was to build 10 new scout groups in Saxony and Saxony-Anhalt, which is the neighbor state of Saxony. Especially in the rural areas of this state. We thought that it's really important, and it was new to the other projects in the past, that people who are grown up in Saxony and who are involved in the Saxony Scout structures have to do the job. Part of our strategy is to help the people who build new scout groups to do scouting on their own. And what you learn as young people in scouting, you can transfer into the community outside of scouting. They have good ideas, and they're really feel really responsible for what is going on in their environment, like we see now with the Ukrainian-Russian crisis. We have 3 scout groups in Leipzig, and they instantly activated and communicated to the Polish scout groups and coordinated help for the refugees and the kids who are moving to Germany. And that's what scouts can do. They are really good in not just talking, instead of just doing something which helps really. The special thing about scouting is that you don't know that you learn all that. It's just you doing something, it's all fun. And afterwards, I got to know what it brings to me, what it brings in my mind, in my heart, in the whole life of how I'm looking at things and what I can do for me and my community. So I think scouting is pretty cool, but it's not only cool, it's extremely important to help young people to find themselves and giving their something important for their lives and how they go through it.
What a wonderful project. Kirbis spoke about the transferable skills that learned from scouting. Maybe you have experienced this, and maybe that's why you continue to support scouting. Scouts grow up with key skills and values: respect, acceptance, openness, and kindness. Let's take a moment to recognise and thank the passionate German Scout leaders in Waxen and Sachsen, as well as our thoroughly committed German Baden-Powell Fellows from the World Scout Foundation Deutschland. Many of you here today are supporting this project directly, along with others, so that more people will get to experience scouting and go on to drive positive change in Saxony, Germany, and further afield. So now let's continue on our journey and focus further on leadership. Without further ado, it is my honour to introduce you to Jack from Dublin, who will talk to you about his involvement in the Korean Challenge.
Hello, my name is Jack. I'm 20 years old and I scout in 137th Valley Scouts. I actually study just down the road in Trinity College, and I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to our city. I'm here today to talk about the impact scouting has had on my life, and importantly, how our organisation helps to develop the leaders of the future. When I was 15 years old, I applied to an award called the Crean Awards, named after the famous Arctic explorer from Kerry. I was successful in my application. The Crean Awards is aimed at the top patrol leaders in the country who want to challenge themselves further at a national level. In preparation for the award, over a course of 6 months, I completed personal projects in my local community. These involved working with local troops to see how programme can be provided for youth members efficiently. In Iceland, over the course of a week, I led a patrol of 8 participants. Through adverse weather conditions, we went on expedition hikes. I was successful in my award. Although I'm only 20 years old, and I'm sure a lot of you may consider me quite young, I believe there's wisdom between these years. That is because through scouting, scouting is essentially one of the most successful apprenticeship programs for leadership, starting at the age of 5. From a young age, you're able to bounce ideas and continuously learn and teach each other. When I think of role models I have in Scouts, I think of my own Scout leaders. I also think of the leaders from the Crean Challenge. I'm incredibly fortunate to be able to continue my involvement with the Crean Challenge. Currently, I help develop a program for participants partaking in the award. This looks like organising training hikes, doing workshops on how to do logbooks. I wouldn't be the person I am today without scouting. Scouting brings me purpose. Over the past 10 years, almost 300 participants have partaken in this challenge. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jack. It's great to hear about how scouting helps young people to develop such leadership skills. I'm sure you're all looking forward to exploring scouting in Dublin over the coming days. If you would like to find out more, you'll have a chance to ask Jack a question later on during the panel discussion. But for now, let me ask you all some questions. How many of you are Scouts like Jack and I? Raise your hands. Excellent. It's great to be part of such a big community. And how many of you are Baden-Powell Fellows? Incredible. I hope you know the value of your support. You must have seen so many incredible Scout initiatives over the years. Now let's journey to Croatia to discover Baranka, the biggest European volunteer campaign to reforest areas consumed by wildfires. The Scouts started small with various supports, including via the Messengers of Peace initiative. And they are now in an incredible 5th year of action. Over to Dan and Ivana to tell us more.
The whole idea and the whole project came out of pure need. So we were not thinking, whoa, I don't know, let's do something. We had 5 years ago, we had the worst fire season in more than 100 years. We knew that we had to do something big. We knew that we have to do something that is not half a day activity, 1 day activity. We knew that we need to do something that will make a change, that will make a real impact.
Boranka is the biggest European volunteer campaign that is designed to reforest areas that are consumed by wildfires. And originally we started in Split, but in meantime it has spread to other cities in Dalmatia. Boranka has really big impact in our local community, and we involved a lot of people and kids and young people and elders, and people can come to our activities of reforestating, planted trees, be part of that activity, and make some positive impact for our local community and for our nature. For some people who are not available to be part of our weekend activities of reforestating, they can be involved in different workshops that we have in primary and secondary schools, and they can be part of Boranka during our promotional campaign, where they can draw a tree on the paper, take a photo of it and upload it to our website. After that, for every virtual tree, every volunteer planted a real one during our weekend activities. So in the last 4 years of Boranka, we planted more than 100,000 of trees and seeds. Also, we involved more than around 10,000 volunteers and make a really big and positive impact for our local community.
One of the most interesting things about the Boranka campaign is that actually connected to the whole world. So we have volunteers coming to this campaign in Croatia from as far as New Zealand, Australia, United States of America. With this project, we managed to put our organization as the kind of a green leader in whole of Croatia, and to attract attention to the theme of not only reforestation but climate change effects.
That trees provide us green areas, clean air, and support to the local system. But giving back all that benefits to the local community is also one big important thing about our Boranka project.
Boranka is now entering its fifth season, fifth year in a row, which is, I should say, a huge success. From year to year, it's growing. The support from the local community and the whole nation is growing as well. And we see this on the number of participants, we see this on the number of companies that are supporting, from the number of organizations that are supporting the project, and maybe the most important, from the number of similar movements in Croatia which started happening basically delivered from this project. So, like I said, each year the impact is growing, and we are really happy to see that something that we as Scouts created and started almost 5 years ago now became actually the largest reforestation, voluntary reforestation of burned areas project in the whole of Europe.
And this was just the beginning.
This year we need your help
to continue this reforestation and make burnt black areas green again.
As we can see, Croatian Scouts are doing a wonderful job, not only taking action on reforestation, but driving intergenerational environmental education. Scouts in Ireland are also tackling climate change and environmental issues with the sustainability team leading the way. Please welcome Lydia, a Rover Scout and member of the Scouting Ireland sustainability team, to tell us more about her involvement with the Sustainable Development Goals.
Hello everyone, my name is Lydia. I began my journey in Scouting as a young Beaver Scout at the age of 6, and since then I've had some incredible experiences. I'm now 18 and I remain an active Rover Scout in the 31st Waterford Scout Group. I've gotten to co-pilot a plane across the coast of Ireland and even lead national youth conferences and assemblies. When I was 6, I learned as a Beaver Scout to leave no trace wherever I go, and 12 years later, this has developed into a sense of pride and duty to look after our natural habitats. I truly believe that Scouts are the original caretakers of the world and that we will be key in creating a better world to stop the climate crisis. One of my favourite parts of Scouting is helping out in my own Scout group in Waterford. We've been educating our Cub Scouts on the Sustainable Development Goals, which we want to help achieve by 2030. We've been focusing on quality education, SDG number 4, and SDG number 13, which is climate action. With our Cub Scouts, we've encouraged them to stop using fertilizers in their garden and to let wildflowers grow. I've done this with my family, and it's beautiful to see what different flowers and nature can start to thrive when you just give it the space to do so. We've gotten outdoors and done some learning by doing and created bug hotels for bugs and insects to thrive. Throughout my work in sustainability in my own Scout group, I've realized that young people know so much more than they expect us to. And I wanted to go further and get involved in national Scouting. To tell the truth, I was not very confident and I didn't think I had the skills. I was quite shy. But from amazing support from my Scout leaders, I realized that I did have it in me to do it. And I put myself forward for the role of National Youth Representative. And I'm delighted to say that I was elected by my peers to represent us. This was absolutely life-changing for me. I got to talk to young people from all over Ireland and discover what were the key issues that young people are facing. I was inspired and I wanted to get more involved in sustainability, so I joined the Scouting Ireland sustainability team. I truly believe the sustainability team is the perfect example of the Scout method in action. We have young people and adults coming together to create something that's wonderful for everyone. We are doing learning by doing and getting out and teaching Scout groups what they can do. There are two main projects that I've been working on since I joined a few months ago. One of them has been to create training systems for adults in Scouting on how they can incorporate Scouts for SDGs into their Scout groups. The other one is looking into ways that we can make our adventure skills that we have here in Scouting Ireland, like hiking, camping, air activities, all more sustainable. Throughout this, I learned that young people do have the power to change the world and create a better world. Because of Scouts, we're prepared for so many things. I'm now going off to college, and because of Scouting, I feel ready for this. We have Scouts across Ireland right now who are prepared to help out in whatever way they can. We have, in our national Scout centres, Ukrainian people who have come from their country to flee the conflict, staying in our national Scout centres, and we're ready to help in whatever way we can. Scouting is a philosophy. It taught me to see the best in myself and everyone around me. It teaches you to be creative and problem solve. It taught me to stand up for myself while not speaking over other people. It has also taught me the power of international friendship and how to accept different cultures. Baden-Powell once said, "Try your best in your time in the world, and when your time comes to die, you can die at any rate knowing that you have not wasted your time, but you have tried your best." If you're a Scout, you'll know that there's one line of the Scout promise that stays the same, no matter if you're a 6-year-old Beaver Scout or an 18-year-old Rover Scout like me, and that is that you try your best. It's what I tried to do in my life and what I'd encourage all of you to do as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. It's inspiring to hear about your work with the Sustainable Development Team and your passion for Scouting. So far today, we've heard about growth, leadership, environment, and sustainability. And now we're going to travel across the globe to hear more about community involvement. During the pandemic, Argentinian Scouts have been supporting young people and families from vulnerable communities. To offer a more cohesive and sustainable approach to these people, Argentinian Scouts are today leading community involvement centres in key regions of the country. Let's find out more.
Our Scout involvement centers are centers and spaces where people that are Scouts and that are not Scouts can join effort towards working on their communities. Our idea was to give spaces that were very flexible to adapt to each reality. Maybe in some places we have migratory problems, so the involvement center is going to work very hard on this topic, and maybe in another place it won't even be an important issue, but they can work another totally different thing.
Since the very beginning, our NSO has involved young people like myself in the planning of the project, the execution of the project, but also the evaluation and monitoring of each one of the activities and centers. I am very proud that our NSO is taking young people into decision-making levels, even for this project, in terms how to execute it, who to involve, who to invite, who to partner with.
As a young Scout, I'm very proud of being part of this project. I think we succeed on making this project not for the communities, but with the community, not for young Scouts, but with young Scouts.
One of some obstacles that we've had in this project is first understanding that realities in Argentina are very different in the 6 strategic points that we have our centers. I think this one is the most touching obstacle that we had to face. Is very hard family realities. For example, some people talking to us and telling us and trusting in us with maybe some gender violence that they were facing back at home. So when we heard that, we had to quickly do something about it. We also heard some families that were not able to eat, that they didn't even have food for the next 24 hours. So we had to quickly find donations for those specific cases.
Community involvement centers already had an impact on more than 6,000 people and their families. They were all beneficiaries of this project, but we couldn't have achieved that if it weren't for an amazing job our more than 2,500 volunteers made in all of our 6 involvement centers all around Argentina. This makes us very proud because it means that our project is sustainable over time, regardless of the funding. Today, many communities are thinking of opening their own involvement center. I think the funding that Scout Foundation gave us to begin this project was necessary and very generous to make this dream possible.
Our community involvement centers are our way, Scouts de Argentina's way, into changing and creating and building a better world. This project has given us many skills and abilities to get to know our community and to give them and offer a very significant experience for every children, young person or adult that attended and was assisted through our centers and with the help of our volunteers. These centers were the places where a lot of volunteers put their efforts with a lot of compromise and responsibility into creating a better world. That's what Scouting invites us. And we know this is our way, but we know there are many, many other ways. But we are convinced that community involvement through the Scout movement is our answer and our solution.
It's great how the response received from the community encouraged Scouts to expand the centres to additional regions. And all of this was made possible with the support from local partners and Baden-Powell Fellows, in particular the Imholz family, as part of the Messengers of Peace initiative. We have given you a glimpse of regular Scout activities from around the world. Our world faces terrible situations such as armed conflicts, natural disasters, and pandemics. Here we also see Scouts stepping in to help. Humanitarian principles resonate strongly with Scouting values. Today we have invited Nika, a Ukrainian Scout and World Scout Committee member, to talk about Scouting in humanitarian action.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nika Gorowska. I am a current member of the World Scout Committee, and I'm from Ukraine. I'm part of the National Scout Organization in Ukraine, and I was the International Commissioner for 6 years in the past. Ukraine has been in all the international world news for more than a month now. And I think you will all agree with me how absurd it is to still see tanks and missiles hitting the ground, to see ruined buildings and ruined lives, to see people forced to stop doing things each of us does, walking in the park in the morning, or taking kids to school, or cooking dinner, or sitting in the living room and watching the TV in the evening, all the everyday things. It is unreal and unfair that this thing can still happen in the world of today, and it's happening right there, right now. But I don't want to talk about this situation today. I want to talk about Scouting. Its importance and its crucial role in addressing the crisis worldwide, including the war in Ukraine. Supported by the World Scout Foundation, World Scouting immediately reacted to an unfolding situation. An emergency appeal was set up via the Scout donation platform to help Ukrainian Scouts on site working with civilians, and also the Scouts from the neighboring countries, welcoming millions of Ukrainian refugees. More than $400,000 have been collected so far, with over 2,200 supporters and donors from all over the world driving this financial support and also spreading this campaign globally. And I know how many of you have joined this appeal, and I cannot express how grateful I am, and the Ukrainian Scouts are, and our whole World Global Scout family for your truly meaningful contributions. These donations have been supporting the National Organization of the Scouts of Ukraine in their work on site with internally displaced people, helping them with basic needs and transportation, and also the national scout organizations from the neighboring countries like Poland, Romania, Moldova, and others, who are welcoming the refugees from Ukraine and are supporting them with essential needs, volunteers, accommodation, and critical logistics. This funding is also being allocated to psychological support and other mental health services to children and young people who have experienced what I hope none of you ever will: the integration of those refugees who might not be coming back to Ukraine is another essential step in their well-being. And again, Scouts, apart from short-term solutions, they are also already planning long-term by giving the opportunity to young people to get actively involved in their new communities through Scouting, and also helping their families to feel more at home. And it's been really incredible to witness this tremendous support from Scouts with their skills, really the right ones, both soft and hard skills that they gained through their participation in the Scout movement, starting from first aid or critical thinking and to running large-scale camp logistics or managing volunteers. And these skills are really invaluable in the situation, in the emergency crisis settings. I know this is not the first time that we see that we can always count on Scouts whenever the crises occur. And either natural disasters or human-made conflicts, Scouts are always among the first ones to respond, resilient, and also empowered with their skills, with compassion, solidarity, and acts of service. And again, your gifts to the foundation enable Scouts to get these skills for life and to respond and to really make a difference in the hardest of circumstances. And I thank all of you for that.
With over 57 million Scouts serving their communities around the world, young people and volunteers are often some of the first responders during a humanitarian crisis and key partners in the delivery and provision of long-term solutions and ongoing support. Humanitarian principles resonate strongly with Scout values. Scouts are respectful and kind, with a duty to others at the heart of our Scout promise. Through Scouting, young people develop as resilient, active citizens who gain critical skills that enable them to take meaningful action. Scouts can mobilize quickly, manage large-scale logistics, and coordinate other volunteers to respond in an emergency. From rescue and cleanup efforts following natural disasters like floods and earthquakes, to community relief during the global pandemic, and supporting refugees fleeing conflict, Scouts are prepared to help and respond where their communities need it most. Scouts also play a long-term role in supporting and integrating young people affected by disasters, giving children and youth a safe space to grow and develop leadership skills that will last a lifetime. At the global level, we support National Scout organizations to develop training programs and activities that help prepare Scouts to respond during humanitarian crises. And Scouts' actions are amplified thanks to the ongoing support of the World Scout Foundation, our partners, and supporters worldwide. Let's help them do even more.
This is wonderful. With your support, we're able to help Scouts to prepare to respond during humanitarian crisis. We will hear more about the impact of Scouting and your support from World Scout Foundation CEO Mark Nippenberg, World Scout Committee Chairperson Andy Chapman, and our Scout speakers on a panel discussion moderated by WUSM Secretary General Ahmed Alandawi.
Wow, how are you? Good, Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, everyone in the room, not that I can see everyone, too much light, but just to stretch your hand at scale from least inspired to most inspired, where do you stand now? Nice, everyone. That's great. That was truly inspiring, and we'll continue building on the stories we just heard and reflect a little bit more about what's going on in World Scouting. And I just cannot be more pleased or more happier that we're able to be once again together in person, bringing Scouting and this community of believers and supporters of Scouting together here in the same room. It's been almost 3 years, Mark, since we gathered here. Exactly 3 years, in fact. And it's so great to see the 3D dimension of everyone again. I mean, it's been a lot of a 2D with the Zoom calls and Zoom events. So with that, I'm very pleased to welcome to the panel here, together with Mark and Andy, the 3 great speakers we just heard from, Nika, Jack, and Lydia. And we will be having time for questions, so I challenge you actually to prepare your questions for our speakers if you have any follow-up questions to them. But let me start with you, Andy. You're just coming out of a pandemic. Seems things are almost coming back to normal. And World Scouting didn't only survive the pandemic. In fact, we are in such a great shape now to re-engage and reach out to more young people. And we have been talking about the question of growth, the need to grow the movement, reach out to more. I guess the question I have is, why and where? Why to grow and where to grow?
Thanks, Ahmad. That's a great question. I'm sure you've all been familiar with the Vision 2023 we have to grow the movement to 100 million scouts around the world. You'll see in our data, we're currently at about 57 million. But really, the growth goal has nothing to do with the numbers and data points. Obviously, we're very proud of our 57 million scouts that we have around the world. But the reason we want to grow is because of what you've just seen here today, the tremendous impact that scouting has, not only on the individual scouts, but on the community and on global society. And you asked, well, how do we do this and why do we do this? We do this by providing quality scouting, and we do it to not just those who are in the middle class and above, that have the resources to naturally be involved in scouting. We do this through diversity and inclusion. And what we mean by that is making scouting available to everyone around the world, regardless of what community they come from, regardless of their socioeconomic background. It's very common to see scouting in many countries really focused on the metropolises, the cities, but we have to do more. We have to reach out to those underserved communities. And I'd argue that these communities are the ones that need scouting more than ever. So, and we can only do that through teamwork. And the team is more than just the World Scout Committee. The team is everyone here in this room. It's all of our supporters like you that help to make that happen. So I also want to take this opportunity on behalf of the entire World Scout Committee to thank all of you for all of your support. Without you, we would not be able to make scouting happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Let me ask Mark then you have the happy duty of engaging with this community of supporters, and I think some people will be also excited to learn about what's in the pipeline, or what's coming ahead, what's in development now, and how we can actually engage this community of supporters and looking at how they can engage and support more the stories of Lydia's and Jack's and Nika and Andy and all of us, in fact, that we have been able to be here thanks to scouting and the non-formal education that we all experience in the program.
Thank you, Ahmed, for this great question. And I've been sitting there and I thought, wow, this is what we do together with everybody here. And for the last 2 days and this morning, I have been in meetings and meetings and meetings, and sometimes you wonder why you do all these meetings. But sitting there, listening to you, it's clear why we do this. And it is highly inspiring, and I hope it's inspiring you as Baden-Powell Fellows, you as supporters of Scouting, you as leaders and active leaders of Scouting here in Ireland. I hope it's inspiring. And for us, we have, in the process of taking some very challenging decisions going forward, because we understand that what is happening needs more support. We have been discussing a new strategy for the foundation with a huge challenge to raise and grant $100 million in the coming 9 years to World Scouting. And we need your support for that. Maybe not you personally, but you might know somebody who can help. I hope you are inspired. I hope you are able to talk to your friends, to your colleagues, maybe to your bosses, to be able to gain that support and help us to raise that 100 million so that these young people sitting on my right and in the audience can continue their fantastic work, and that support we can give to World Scouting to make sure that quality scouting is rolled out and guaranteed around the world.
Thanks for that. I mean, we just saw the report from the World Scout Foundation coming out called Momentum. I think fully agree with the sentiment and of that report is that momentum that we're seeing today in many communities. And I would like to come to you, Nika, to talk a little bit more about what you just shared with us. I traveled to Poland. I've seen the response in the ground. I've seen how Scouts have mobilized, and I mean, goosebumps, in fact, just seeing like how Scouts were in every central station, at the airport, at the train stations, and they were trusted by everyone in the community and the whole country, saying that Scouts will coordinate everything and we will follow their lead. I met the mayor in Krakow, and he said, well, they were ahead of us in every aspect almost in the preparations. I bet Scouting in Ukraine, in Poland, and most neighboring countries didn't think of a humanitarian training, or didn't think that this situation will happen at their doors. And suddenly we have seen the best mobilization ever, and I have witnessed that firsthand. Can you reflect a bit about how the program made you so ready and giving so much hope to everyone in your society?
Yeah, thank you, Ahmed. Absolutely. And I think it all starts with our Scout promise, right? Scouts' motto, be prepared. And it means it's not just an expression, right? It's about our willingness to act and the skills and knowledge and competencies that we develop and we learn in Scouting, and that we can use then in our everyday lives as well. And Scouting just provides this safe environment to young people to practice and to learn and to grow. And yeah, in Scouting we have a lot of educational resources for that. And again, it's not only about how to respond, but also how to take care of yourself, about mental health of your environment, etc. We have several initiatives like Messengers of Peace program, like Dialogue for Peace, right? That's where, again, these programs are there to encourage young people to reflect and to think what we can do to build a more peaceful and more sustainable world and a more sustainable and peaceful societies, and what are the right values we need to develop in ourselves and our friends for this to happen. And again, as you said, Scouting and Scouts are there as the first responders to whatever situation, and as the situation with Ukraine has shown, it's true, we don't know when these skills might be needed. So it is important to remember that we need and we are prepared as Scouts.
Yeah, well, very well said. Very well said. I think, Lydia, you said there's so much wisdom in what you said. And I think you established the common theme in the Scouting promise by doing your best. In fact, we always ask old people, I'm not pointing out to you at all, just we ask some old people somewhere to give advice to some young people. I would like to ask this the other way around, and I would like to ask you, as 18 years old, as a young person who's concerned about the world, you see that the world is not in great shape, climate change is a real threat, inequality is increasing, peace and security are clearly no nation is immune from dealing with the consequences of these challenges. As 18 years old, so concerned with the SDGs, looking to the future, and today you have an opportunity to speak to supporters of Scouting. What advice do you have for these people?
I think my advice would be to keep supporting Scouting and listen to young people and trust us. We know so much more than people think. Like, from talking to my friends and meeting new Scouts, I'm always surprised with how much people know. But then again, I'm not surprised because we've grown up through Scouting and we've learned so many skills from Scouting, and we're ready to give them back. and create a better world. And I've learned so much from Scouts, and it really does prepare you for life. So I would encourage everyone to listen to the young people, and if you give them the platform to shine, they will. Trust me, they really will.
What they say, like, you are not too young to lead, never too young to lead, and never
Exactly.
too old to learn, right? So I think that came very clear. Jack, I know that you're at an interesting time in your life now. You're 20th, you have like one eye you're focusing your studies and finishing your studies. The second, you're looking at the transition to the labor market and finding a job or creating your business. And one of the qualities in Scouting, we don't talk about that often, is about the transition and being hired or being seen as a reliable employee. How do you plan to prepare for this transition? And how do you think the Scout program and the skills you have will help you actually make that transition?
I think there's a huge amount of transferable skills in Scouting. I think everything we do turns us into the perfect employee or candidate for a job. I noticed at a Scout event, I think there's a universal feeling, and I'm sure people have felt it here today, where there's a connectedness and there's an atmosphere there at every Scout event. And I think that's behind the Scouting core values. We're all here for the same purpose. And I think when employers are looking at who are we going to trust with this job, I feel like that energy and that energy comes across them. And I think all Scouts have that. Obviously, huge amount of transferable skills, communication under pressure, preparing program. These are all things that are going to look good on a CV, but I think it's that energies that Scouts bring into a room that's what makes them employable.
I think these are the skills that actually you can bet on, because whatever you study, whatever you learn will be a few years from now quite outdated. I think the time when you get a degree and you work 40 years with that degree are well behind us now. What is there is actually the skills you carry with you, and wish you luck with that transition. And I would like to ask Andy here, and looking ahead for some of the plans and the programs we have lined up, what do we have in the pipeline from World Scouting as well? Obviously, I'm biased there. I know some of it, but it will be great to know what we have in the pipeline in terms of just keep innovating the programs and offer programs and initiatives that would unleash these skills and opportunities in people.
Thanks, Ahmad. I think one of the most successful programs that we have in the history of World Scouting has been the Scouts for SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. It's so smart of us to focus on something that all the world already agrees about, something that's important. And you've probably seen we crossed the milestone during the pandemic, in fact, of 2 billion hours of service from Scouts around the world, which is tremendous. And we're well on our way to crashing through the 3 billion mark as well and beyond. But just the excitement and energy you see from Scouts everywhere we go about finding one of those sustainable development goals, creating a community service project about it, and then most importantly, telling the world their story, telling them about this is what happened, this is what we accomplished. Another really great program that we have is Ticket to Life, which many of you in the audience have probably seen as well, where we help take kids in really unfortunate situations off the streets and provide them the non-formal education that Scouting gives through the Ticket to Life program. I cannot think of a greater example of what we do in creating active citizens for creating a better world.
Yeah, indeed, and just reflecting and seeing the reports of WOSM, the World Scout Foundation, and seeing the impact of these programs, we take sometimes these numbers lightly, about 2 and 3 billion hours of service. I mean, every time I say this, I mean, people are blown away with the impact and really the growth that we have achieved, but the deepening that impact. And we all remember and we see the starting that efforts with the Messengers of Peace initiative that started even before the SDGs were introduced, and how they managed to really build that community of action, spreading culture of peace and having more of this community action. I guess, Mark, if I come back to you with a question on, we call community of supporters, we call them fellows, we call them investors. I like to call them believers. Because in the first hand, this is a community of believers, people who really believe that we cannot just watch the world or deteriorate or do nothing about things, but we think we actually figure out a time-tested solution to make the world a better place. That's called Scouting. makes individuals better, make the world and communities better. I think the question I have, what you would ask this community of believers to do, or what more they can do to ensure that Scouting is even more well-positioned, reaching out to more young people, as Andy said, and empowering more young people with this life-changing experience?
Well, I like to iterate on what I said before. I mean, if you imagine that we are going to raise 100, or commitment to raise $100 million by 2030, actually that translates in less than $2 per scout that is actually in scouting at the moment. 57 million, less than $2. It's a doable thing. And I think if you have listened and are as inspired as I am sitting here by listening to the young people doing these projects, but also realizing that how many projects that are passing my desk every day about that needs funding and that we are able to grant funding that are not always so visible, projects that are needed for quality scouting, such as governance-related projects to help National Scout organizations to perform even better than they have done before, or capacity strengthening projects. All these things need your support. Whether it's you personally, and I've said it before, or whether it is that you are helping us to find those people, whether it's individuals or corporations or bigger foundations, if you can help us opening those doors, that's what we're looking for the future. And of course, at the same time, we're looking for, let's say, 1,000 new Baden-Powell fellows. So there is a task for you to do. And if that's not what your strength is, then please come and see me. And we need your skills and we need your enthusiasm and knowledge in some of our work we do, whether it is in fundraising committees, preparing proposals, or in one of our standing committees. There is so much you can do, and that's the call to action to you all. Help us where you can, fundraising or otherwise.
I think what you were just saying resonates with what Lydia said. That's how beautiful it is to be able to actually invest in making the world a better place, do something about. And I just want to join you in thanking everyone in this community of believers for really believing and supporting and staying the course and making sure we get to scouting to more young people. So we'll be opening for some questions now, and maybe we'll benefit from some more lights and some more hands. Let's see. I recognize, let's take it from the right, I will come to you in a second, in the third row here. No, take the mic, please. Introduce yourself, please.
Question for Lydia, it's working now. What is your best scouting memory?
Lydia.
Oh, that's a really good question. Probably my favorite scouting memory was for me when I got to meet all of the friends that I made over COVID, because for a long time we were working online on Zoom, so I didn't get to see a load of my closest Scout friends. So probably getting to meet them all at our National Youth Assembly a few weeks ago, that was my favorite. Thanks.
Well, you know, Lydia, what I really loved about your story is sometimes we keep looking at like magnificent projects, a huge impact, or forestation. What you reminded us of today is the scouting by itself. Just the fact going through the program and becoming a better version of yourself is by itself a huge achievement. And I think sometimes we don't talk enough about that magic of scouting in young people by belonging, by having friends, by developing skills. And sometimes it doesn't have to be a massive project, but just that story of progression and development. So thanks for keeping it simple, but really to the point about the core of what scouting is. Over to you.
Who has a question?
We have.
Hi, folks. It's great to see so many familiar faces. I suppose my question would be around, the external impact scouting can have. And I think, Nikki, you summed it up incredibly. Ahmed, I know you were one of the first UN youth, you were the first UN youth envoy. And I'd be really interested to hear what your thoughts are on what the impact of scouting has on the policy world, on the political world, and how we can make systematic change to, like Lydia said, create a better world.
Okay, although I'm a moderator, but I accept overtime work, so that's fine. I can briefly say, I mean, in Scouting, when you are the largest youth organization in the world, we cannot just pretend we're a smaller one or we don't care about the world around us. I think really the evolution we are seeing in Scouting at the national level, more national Scout organizations, they are using their voice. They are engaging in public issues. They are influencing policies because you know you can achieve a greater impact by doing that. And actually, we're not doing that alone. For example, one of our great mobilizations efforts is getting the biggest 6 youth organizations together and responding to the impact of COVID in young people. We have one of the best funding mechanism for youth-led solutions. We call it the Global Youth Mobilization, where Scouting is the leading organization convening the IFRC, the Red Cross, WAGs, together with a number of other organizations like YMCA, YWCA. So increasing and working with others. Think about it. Half of the world's population is under the age of 25. That's almost 3.5 billion. We are 57 million. And our cause, after all, making sure that more young people are empowered and developed. So you have to work with others. You have to bring others on board. And while doing that, we'll be able actually to achieve a greater impact. And I think the story here of Scouting Ireland is a good one and showing how, as the largest youth organization, is able to connect and provide more for young people. So yeah, great questions. Thanks for putting me in the spot there. So, Jeff? Oh. We'll follow your lead.
Thanks, Nicole. Jack, I'd be very interested to hear, and I think everyone else would as well, what's the impact from employers when you're now applying to get into the workplace? How do they feel about the impact of Scouting and what you've done over the last 10 years?
Brilliant question, thank you. Recently, I actually just went through the process of applying for a job, and in the application, I was asked to write a report on their business. In the report, I reflected on what I thought they were doing well, and reflected that on what Scouting is doing. And I linked the areas they were doing well to what we were already doing in Scouting, and then showed them what they were missing out on in Scouting. So areas that they hadn't incorporated. And they liked the report because I guess it was a perspective they hadn't seen before. But I think employers are, whether they know it or not, and successful corporations are copying our model, or the success in Scouting, the successful things that we are doing, they are replicating. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It's a great answer. Nico? Yeah.
Hello, Jan from Germany. I have a maybe a little bit difficult question to Andy. So I just come home from a camp with more than 1,000 participants we held with rovers in Germany, which ended up being a little experiment due to COVID. So we tested like 10% positive, sent them home. And how do you see the future of international events in Scouting in the large scale?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. The answer is, as we learned in the pandemic, it's an ever-evolving situation. I'd like to say it changes month to month, but sometimes it even changes week to week. So, we focus greatly in World Scouting on safe from harm and keeping Scouts safe from harm, no matter what the environment is. And that doesn't stop, in one spot specifically. It extends, obviously, to the pandemic recovery. So, we have a constitutional amendment, actually, from the last World Scout Conference that every NSO around the world must make safe from harm a priority. And that extends to the COVID impact and making sure that all of our Scouting events are safe for youth and adults. There's not going to be one answer, and obviously every country has different requirements from their government on what they have to comply to. So we just have to be vigilant, analyze the situation, and react accordingly.
Thank you, Andy. And Nicole? Yeah.
Hi, so my question is also for Andy.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm Savannah. Nice to see you again. So my question is, how have you seen the SDGs change during the pandemic, and how do you think Scouts can continue to improve and develop their SDG projects to be more applicable to the COVID world?
Thanks, Savi. Yeah, Savi and I actually did a presentation in the U.S. on the SDGs, so I know it's near and dear to our heart. One of the beautiful things about the SDGs and Scouting during the pandemic was when all other youth service programs were not available, sports, clubs, Scouting was there, and we answered the question, even in the most difficult of circumstances, of what youth can continue to do to create that non-formal educational space. And Savi, the answer really doesn't come from me. The answer is visible if you go to the SDGs web platform and you see the stories of all of these Scouts and how, like you said, they took different goals of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and they reimagined how they could apply that to their local communities, being safe, helping to be on the front line with whether it was vaccine rollouts or then the testing, mask distribution. And there's so many parallels that we saw that crossed over many of the Sustainable Development Goals. So really, the Scouts did the work there for us, and they were the most creative people to come up with that crossover.
Lydia, would you like to comment on that? I mean, you are part of the sustainability team, you are very committed to the SDGs, and just when you were I was doing the math, there are 17 goals, you're 18 years, the SDGs was adopted 7 years ago, you were 11 years, and you talk eloquently about it better than anyone I've seen. So how do you see Scouting with the SDGs?
Well, actually, in Scouting Ireland, with the sustainability team, over COVID, we developed a new badge, and Jack actually has it there. It was called Sustainable Scouting from Home. So the idea with the badge was that we had different activities for all of the different SDGs, and if you did a number of these activities, then you got the badge. And I think the time at COVID that we spent at home in Ireland here, a lot of Scouts spent it really well and took the time to educate themselves on the SDGs. And now I think a lot more people here in Ireland are a lot more informed on them.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much. I have a question in the back from, I recognize that gentleman.
Good afternoon. My name is John Gagan. I'm the former guy from the World Scout Foundation. And I'm glad to see that the foundation has got an upgrade in Mark Knippenberg. So congratulations. But I just want to, I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I'm here for only a very short time. I got some family commitments. But I wanted to say just thank you very much to all of you that's here. Thanks for all the years that you've given to Scouting and the commitment you've given. And for those of you who are about to join the journey, give lots of money because they need it. To everybody else, to Your Majesty, thanks for 20 years or 22 years of a fantastic ride. It's a really, really great job. You got Ahmed Al-Handawi and the team there from World Scouting. They are absolutely worth investing in. Absolutely amazing group of people. So just thank you for what you're doing here. Good luck.
Thank you, John. Thanks for what you've done. Thank you so much. And I just want to say huge thanks to the Irish Scouts and experiencing the Irish hospitality and being inspired by your stories is very special to all of us. And seeing how Scouting is pronounced in each community is a good reminder of the universality of this movement. It takes the shapes of the different communities where it serves. So, Nicole, we have one more question, third row, and then we'll come to you. Yeah.
Hi, this is a question for Andy. You mentioned that there is a plan to grow to 100 million Scouts. What are the current plans to grow Scouting within the countries that have less than 1,000 Scouts, less than 600 Scouts? And what are the plans to create those countries that are served by overseas Scouting to create their own Scouting associations?
Thanks, and I think I have to correct my earlier statement. I said, our goal is 100 million Scouts. It's actually to enable 100 million young people around the world to be active citizens in their community. And I just wanted to specify that because Scouting has an impact beyond those of us that have the privilege of taking the promise and wearing the neckerchief. It extends to all of our community projects that we're involved in. We get others involved. We saw the great example from Croatia with getting the entire country behind reforestation projects. So I just wanted to qualify that the 100 million is not just limited to Scouts, it's to those and beneficiaries that receive the benefit of Scouting. I think to your second question on overseas engagement of Scouting and those who may be displaced from their home countries, the answer is pretty simple, and that's that we need more resources through the World Scout Foundation, through all of you, to make that happen. We also have great opportunities through the Scout donation platform, because the Scouts know where they need the funds, they know where they need the support, and Ukraine was a great example, because within the days of the crisis, we were able to trigger the Scout donation platform and raise all of those funds to support Scouting. And it's scalable, right? It doesn't have to be to an entire country. The Scout donation platform could be those communities, like you said, where there might only be 100 Scouts, or there might only be 1,000. So my advice is to take advantage of all the resources that we provide at the world level. They're not as known either, right? It's we can always do a better job of communicating, no matter what organization you're in. So I'd also ask for your help, of everyone here in the audience, to be ambassadors of Scouting. Help us tell these communities where these opportunities are and where we can provide support to help them achieve their goals.
Thank you so much, Andy. And one more question here. Yeah, please.
I think I have a bit of a confession to make. I'm a member of the board of Scout in Ireland, but I'm not actually a Scout, so I always love to see our Scouts on stage, and they were excellent today, as always. You can always rely on a Scout. That's what I'm learning very quickly. The question I have, which is actually aimed at, I suppose, the people here who are wearing the knickers on the stage, is around inclusion and diversity. We're having a real issue with this. Even in Ireland, we have certain minority groups that are very underrepresented. And I'm just wondering, how exactly is the World Scout Foundation going to tackle that Sustainable Development Goal around inclusion and diversity? And I also, when I say this, I mean for minority groups, but also people with disabilities and other challenges. How is Scouting going to be really inclusive for all persons, regardless of maybe a physical or a mental disability? What are the plans? And please tell me there are plans.
Thank you so much. I think I would also maybe look to Mark, and Andy, please feel free to comment. Also from all the projects that get funded, how many of them are also focusing on diversity and inclusion, and generally the stand we have on diversity and inclusion?
I think there are amazing things happening around the world, and in 172 national Scout organizations, diversity and inclusion is I think for everyone a major topic, and they're all working on it. And we as the foundation need to make sure that we are able to support all these initiatives around the world. We also know that sometimes Scouting can be slightly exclusive. Only part of society has access to it. And I think together with my colleagues here from the World Scout Bureau and the World Scout Committee, we need to be able to challenge these Scout organizations to do more, to reach out, to be inclusive for all groups in society that are in that country present.
Andy?
Yeah, if I could just add on to that, I want to advertise as well the launch that we had in the last triennium of the WASM services. And it's a menu of service options that we provide to support national Scout organizations. And one of the key WASM services that we have is around diversity and inclusion. And the way that works, I'm so glad that you're a board member. Now we know you're requesting a service, but we can deploy a team of WASM consultants to help you achieve that goal. We also have many resources on the WASM services platform, but we would really like to partner with you to help you be successful in that.
It's a very important consideration. I think always we say to NSOs and National Scout Organization, the easiest check for you to know how you are scoring in diversity and inclusion is not a complicated matrix, in fact. Try to list the components in your society, the diversity in your society, and try to match that with your membership. And see if you are missing out in certain segments of the population or certain backgrounds, then that's exactly your task, and you need to make sure that the Scouting mirrors the societies where we are in, and there's not an exclusive organization for certain members. Anything in diversity and inclusion you would like to add? Or we take more questions? We'll do both, maybe. Okay, one more question, Thomas.
Yes, Thomas Frostberg from Sweden, the Swedish chapter board of Baden Powell Fellows. I want to direct a question to Nika. Thank you very much for your inspiring speech. It touched very deeply. And in the beginning of the war, I know that some people thought it would be hard to fundraise for scouting when there was a war going on. And then we started to communicate what you and your friends are doing and in the neighboring country. And we have actually seen more new BP fellows joining the Swedish chapter as part of a fundraiser for Ukraine. But I would like to follow up with a question to you then. What could we do back at home when we see the families coming? You touched a bit about it, but could you challenge us? Could you tell us to do more? To me, for the rest of the Swedish chapter board, including His Majesty, how to actually engage the kids coming to Sweden and other countries?
Thanks, Thomas. Nika.
Thank you very much. A very good question and a very important one to all of us. I think there is no universal answer to this. The thing I would like to start answering to this question with is that I think we all should do what we feel like doing, and that's also very important because sometimes I've seen personally, I've heard of many people, following what needs to be done or what should be done, but again, as scouts, as believers, we need to follow our hearts and, again, to see what are the ways we can help. And if there are more ways, it really depends on, in what capacity you are and the tremendous support that we are already receiving. And again, it's been incredible to see how the whole Scout community, the whole world united really to support Ukraine, to support Ukrainian citizens, to support Ukrainian Scouts and Scouts of the neighboring countries in this work. So again, this is already such a great thing that you are doing. There are obviously things like spreading the word about what's happening, making people join the appeal, making people understand what's happening. Because again, as Scouts, we are not here to fight the wars, right? We are here to teach current and future generations how to avoid them in the future. And that's also what I think is a very important thing to remember. And this is just one of the situations from which we all can learn, and we can talk to our young people, we can talk to our children about it, so that they know what the right values are and what is this better future, better world of tomorrow for all of us, what it might look like.
Thanks, Nika. One of the resources that was made available immediately when the war erupted is how to talk to children about war, which was translated in 5 languages, was made available. And we were asking all the scouted troops actually to take time to talk to their members about how we can approach the question of war and how the values of dialogue and peace should be instilled in our work. And I think sometimes these acts and making sure that what our founder said, that we're active in doing good, not passive in being good. That sometimes you have to talk about these issues and you have to bring it and make sure that Scout leaders are empowered to carry these conversations with their teams. So thank you so much for that. Take one more question maybe. Right in the middle there.
Thank you. Hello. All right, there's a camera between us. I'm going to lean on my Swiss friend. My name is John Angelo. I'm from the USA. This question's for Nika. So you're on the World Scout Committee. Congratulations. You're at the Of course. You're at the tippy top of the organization, and that's great. But you of all people would know, how in your words would you describe the importance of staying involved at the local level despite any big positions that you might hold?
Thank you. Great question. Probably a little correction from how I see it is that it's not really the top of the organization, but vice versa. Like, as you said, local groups, that's where the movement is, and that's what the most important part of the movement is, and we're all here just to support the grassroots level. And again, just by remembering this and by conveying this thought, this opinion throughout all the levels, that's what also makes leaders of the grassroots level understand that and carry this idea. And that's how we empower the grassroots level. Because again, as we all know, in the Scout movement, the young person is in the middle of the whole process. And through the youth program that we are using in all the NSOs, that's what we see. And just sticking to this thought, to this basic principle, is the right way of making sure that Scouting is relevant and is directed to the grassroots level, that, again, which is the most important in the movement, the local level, which is the most important in the movement, and just carrying this idea through all the levels, including the global one.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Nika. I think we would agree with me that we have our dose of inspiration for the day, of the stories that we heard and all the great answers and this discussion. Just want to thank you all. Want to thank, once again, all our supporters and believers, investors, contributors, scout leaders, and with all the titles we have in the movement. Actually, if you think of it, one of the very unique things about the Scouting, we almost have a unique title for everyone. Because you would be always go with a scout leader in a certain place, or a commissioner, or an assistant district. So you have a very unique title for a contribution for everyone. I think the best of them all is to really be close to the grassroots, making sure that we're able to provide that support that is needed. And during a lot of these lockdowns, and you know, I'm based in Malaysia, and probably the lockdown there was longer than other places. So there was a lot of time to reflect in what we do. And one of the major reflections throughout that, how beautiful it is to know that actually you subscribe and you belong to a movement that is the betterment of the world is its main task, and trying to really not to be passive about things, but active in tackling them. So it's a pleasure to meet you all once again. Hope of this size of this crowd will grow bigger and bigger as we resume our in-person activities and operation. And to your point, I hope there will not be a 10% positive cases here. So this will be hopefully safer, and we wish safety to all, of course, and our fellow scouts back there in Germany. So thank you so much, and give a round of applause to our panel. And now back to Nora.
Thank you all so much for your inspiring interventions. Dear audience, it's been a pleasure to be your host today. Thank you for your support. And I hope you know that our actions are significantly more impactful with your contributions. I now invite Nicole onto the stage for some final remarks.
Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, dear BP Fellows, dear Scouts, and dear distinguished guests, I think we are all truly inspired. And in a moment, you're going to have an opportunity to have a little informal discussion with our speakers at the back of the room with some refreshments. But for now, it falls to me the great privilege to thank Nora, Mark, Andy, Nika, Jack, Lydia, Ahmed. I'd like to say a thank you too as well, please, to Beatrice and Michaela and Victor in our team, to everybody from the World Scout Foundation team, the WSM team, Scouting Ireland, and indeed all of you here today. Let's go and discuss how we can do even more. Thank you very much.